Now we're going to see the preparation of scaloppine. Remembering once again, it's important. Scaloppine is meant as 2 pieces of meat that we get from the fesa or noce from veal. So we have 120 grams in total, 60 grams per slice of meat. With the same method, we can cook other types and other cuts of meat. Today we used our chicken fillet, so we might call it a chicken scaloppina, but it's important to understand that the working method that we will try to understand now can be applied to a lot of different types of meat. So we have our flour. We're going to use a 00 weak flour. We're going to bread our chicken fillet. In the meantime, we're going to turn on our heat on low heat. We're going to add some butter to it. We're also adding a drop of oil to avoid that the butter burns quickly. The pan is already very hot because, as you know, copper is a very good temperature vehicle, so we're lowering the heat to avoid that the butter burns. So we were saying that we're using a 00 flour. We're going to bread our meat directly in the flour, and the flour does 2 things here. The first, it allows us to work with the sugars in the flour, and so in the roasting part we will have a slight bronzing around the chicken fillet, which will give flavor. Part of the starches in the flour will also allow us to thicken naturally our sauce. We will make a white wine sauce. And other important thing, flour is a sort of protector for the chicken, so the layer of flour will protect it a little bit from the direct contact of the pan. So I'm going to bread, as we've seen for cutlet, just slightly pressuring it. Always remember to remove the excess. Placing it in the pan, being very quickly. So being quick and making them quickly. When you're inserting the meat inside of the pan, don't touch it right away, because in the first stage the chicken might perfectly adhere to the pan, so if we touch it, it can rip. And then with our tongs, we're going to just move them very lightly. Sometimes when we place our pan on the burner, the fat might deposit only in one area, so move it every now and then. We can slightly increase the heat. Remember to always have a cloth with you to remove the dirt right away. Let's turn these slices. You can see that the goldening is slight. We have this brownish layer that's almost imperceptible. Don't go over this color. Don't go more brown. When we've had the first searing, we can then go with a little bit of salt. It will take another 30 seconds to also make the part we just stirred or turned. Since we worked with flour, the flour inevitably will go in at the bottom of the casserole and maybe will burn. So every now and then, turn off the heat, let the temperature fall without boiling the meat, of course. If you see that you're cooking like this and you have a piece of meat that's quite thick, you can also use a lid after having bathed your preparation. Now we're going to turn off the heat. Remember that when you're adding a cold component in the pan, in a warm pan, we can burn. So a hot fat and a cold alcohol. Wait a few seconds and then you can turn the heat back on. We're going to deglaze. So you're taking all of the brownish part that has caramelized on the bottom of the casserole. We can add a little bit of salt. And the sweetness of the butter and the wine will give us a very, very round sauce. If you have a thicker piece of meat, you can also add some common white fond, not to put too much white wine. You can also put some chicken broth to finish your cooking. I'm going to stir our meat, which has become hazelnut brown at the base. I'm going to reduce the sauce a little bit. We can turn it off and go on with the presentation. So making a scaloppina with any type of meat, it's a very quick preparation, it's very tasty, it is part of the very traditional recipes of our gastronomy. Imagine in a service that's very accelerated where there are a lot of people who have to eat, it's one of those dishes that allow you to make the service quicker because it's practical to make. So let's take our dish. Always cleaning. We're going to take our dish, moving the things we don't need. We're going to take a vegetable cream. In this case, we have a spinach cream. I'm going to place it on the base and make a nice stripe. Not necessary to put it, but we're always trying to create some color contrast. Then we have tomato oil. And we're going to just drizzle a part of the dish. Then we're going to take our pieces of chicken. This is optional, of course, the cream. Then you can add some aromatic herbs. It'll also give some volume and color to your dish. Not too many because we're talking about a dish. It's a classical dish, so it doesn't need too many things. Drop of oil. Pinch of salt on top. And then we're going to take a spoon and we're going to coat it with the residue of our sauce. And we're going to also drizzle it to the sides. And this is it with the preparation of our scaloppina.